The most dangerous man in Chicago could silence a room full of rival gangsters with a single glare, but he was completely powerless against his own 6-month-old son. Don Lucas Moretti had money, influence, and an army of soldiers at his command, yet he was currently being brought to his knees by a pair of tiny, tear-filled lungs. Everyone in the restaurant was terrified to look, terrified to breathe, until a nobody, a waitress on her very first shift, did the unthinkable. She walked right up to the Mafia boss, ignored his guards, and took the screaming child from his arms. What happened next didn't just silence the room, it changed the entire underworld forever. You won't believe what she whispered. The chandelier above the private booth at Il Cigno vibrated slightly, not from the passing subway trains deep beneath the Chicago pavement, but from the sheer, ear-piercing volume of the screams coming from the stroller. Lucas Moretti pinched the bridge of his nose, his eyes squeezed shut. He was 32 years old, the capo of the Moretti crime family, and he had not slept in 3 days. Across the table, his consigliere, Marco Rossi, shifted uncomfortably in his seat, nervously adjusting his silk tie. "Boss?" Marco started, his voice barely audible over the wailing. "Maybe we should take him outside. The meeting with the Ivanov brothers is in 20 minutes. Lucas opened his eyes. They were the color of cold steel, usually sharp and calculating, but today they were rimmed with red exhaustion. "And do what, Marco? Walk him around the block like a puppy? I have gone through 4 nannies in 2 weeks. 4. The last one left in tears this morning because he wouldn't stop screaming." Lucas looked down at his son, Leo. The baby's face was beet red, his tiny fists clenched tight, tears streaming down his cheeks. It had been 6 months since Lucas's wife, Isabella, had died in childbirth. 6 months of hell. Lucas loved the boy. He was the only piece of Isabella left, but he felt completely incompetent. He could run a criminal empire, but he couldn't soothe his own child. "He hates me," Lucas muttered, reaching out to rock the stroller aggressively. It only made Leo scream louder. The restaurant was dead silent aside from the baby. Il Cigno was Moretti territory. The other diners, politicians, judges, and high-ranking soldiers stared strictly at their pasta, terrified to acknowledge the Don's struggle. To look was to disrespect him. To speak was to invite death. In the kitchen, the atmosphere was just as tense. "Table 4 needs water," the floor manager, a sweaty man named Giuseppe, hissed. He shoved a pitcher into the hands of the newest hire. "Alicia, go. Don't make eye contact. Pour the water, refill the wine if needed, and get out. Do not speak to him." Alicia Vance took the heavy silver pitcher. She was 24, with dark curls tied back in a messy bun and a uniform that was slightly too big for her slender frame. She needed this job. Desperately. Her landlord had given her 3 days to come up with the back rent, or she and her sick mother would be on the street. "Who is he?" Alicia asked, wiping her hands on her apron. "Don't ask questions," Giuseppe snapped. "Just go." Alicia pushed through the swinging doors, and the wall of sound hit her instantly. It was a cry of pure, unadulterated distress. She navigated the tables, her eyes locked on the private booth in the back. She saw the 2 large men in suits standing guard, and the man seated at the head of the table. He looked like a model from a magazine cover. Sharp jawline, expensive suit, but his posture was one of utter defeat. She approached the table. The screaming was deafening up close. The man, Lucas, was trying to shove a pacifier into the baby's mouth, but the child thrashed his head, spitting it out. "Take the damn thing!" Lucas roared, his temper snapping. He slammed his hand on the table. The silverware jumped. The baby went silent for a split second, terrified, and then inhaled for a scream that promised to be the loudest yet. Alicia didn't think. She didn't remember Giuseppe's warning. She didn't look at the guards reaching for their jackets where their guns were holstered. She just saw a baby in pain. She stepped past Marco, placed the water pitcher down with a clink, and reached into the stroller. "What the hell are you doing?" Lucas barked, his hand shooting out to grab her wrist. His grip was like iron. "Don't touch him!" Alicia looked him dead in the eye. Most people trembled when Lucas touched them. Alicia was too tired to tremble. "He's not hungry, and he doesn't want the pacifier. Let go of my arm." The silence in the restaurant was absolute. Marco's jaw dropped. The guard stepped forward. "Boss, should we—" Lucas stared at her. Her eyes were hazel, flecked with gold, and they held no fear, only a strange, weary determination. He was so shocked by her audacity that he actually let go. Alicia immediately scooped Leo up. She didn't rock him frantically like Lucas did. She didn't bounce him. She held him tight against her chest, burying his face in the crook of her neck, cutting off the sensory overload of the bright restaurant. She placed a hand on the back of the baby's head and leaned in close. "Shh," she hummed, a low, vibrating sound in her throat. She swayed her hips, a slow, rhythmic motion. "I know. It's too loud. It's too bright. I know." The baby sobbed, a hitching, ragged breath. Then, Alicia whispered the words that would save her life. She whispered them so softly only Lucas could hear. "He's not being difficult, sir. He's just scared. He can smell the stress on you." Lucas froze. Scared. He was the most feared man in the city. He protected this family with violence and blood. The idea that his own presence was terrifying his son was a knife to the gut. "Give him to me," Lucas demanded, though his voice lacked its usual venom. "Not yet," Alicia said firmly, turning her back to the Don, an act of suicide in any other context. She walked a few paces away from the table, toward a dimmer corner of the room. She hummed a melody, something old and sad. Slowly, miraculously, the screaming stopped. Leo's tiny hand grabbed onto Alicia's uniform. His breathing evened out. Within 2 minutes, he was asleep. Alicia turned back. The entire restaurant was watching her. She walked back to the table and gently, with the precision of a bomb disposal expert, lowered Leo back into the stroller. She tucked the blanket around him. She straightened up, smoothing her apron. She looked at Lucas. "He needs a stricter schedule. He's overtired. And you—" She hesitated, then shrugged. "You need to breathe. Babies are mirrors. He reflects you." She picked up the water pitcher to pour his glass, but her hand shook slightly, the adrenaline finally catching up to her. Lucas stared at the sleeping boy, then up at the waitress. He looked at her name tag. Elysia. "Marco," Lucas said, never taking his eyes off her. "Yes, boss. The meeting with the Ivanovs. Cancel it." "But boss, they're flying in from—" "I said cancel it," Lucas said, coldly. He stood up, towering over Elysia. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a money clip, and peeled off a stack of $100 bills. He didn't count it. It was easily $2,000. He held it out to her. "I don't want your money," Elysia said, though her heart hammered against her ribs. She needed that money more than oxygen. "I just wanted him to stop crying. Nobody says no to me, Elysia," Lucas said, his voice dropping an octave. He took her hand and pressed the money into her palm, closing her fingers over it. His skin was rough, calloused from years of violence, but his touch was surprisingly gentle. "You have a magic touch. Do you have children?" "No," Elysia said, pulling her hand away. I raised my little brothers. I know what it's like to be small and scared in a room full of loud men." There was a double meaning there, a shadow in her eyes that Lucas recognized instantly. It was the look of someone who had seen trauma. "Get your coat," Lucas said. Alicia blinked. "What?" "Get your coat. You're finished here." I can't be fired. Please, I need this job." Panic rose in her chest. "I'm sorry I touched him. I won't do it again." "You're not fired," Lucas said, signaling for his guards to grab the stroller. "You're hired. My driver is outside. You're coming with us." "I'm not going anywhere with you." Alicia stepped back, bumping into the table. "I know who you are, Mr. Moretti. I'm not that kind of girl." Lucas stepped into her personal space. He smelled of expensive cologne, tobacco, and gunpowder. "I don't want you for that, Alicia. I have plenty of women for that. I want you to make my son stop screaming. You are the only person in 6 months who has done it. Name your price." Alicia looked at the sleeping baby, then at the desperate, commanding man in front of her. "I have a sick mother. I can't leave her alone at night." "Then bring her," Lucas said instantly. "I have a guest wing in my estate. Doctors on call, whatever she needs." Alicia felt the trap snapping shut. It was an offer too good to be true, and in her neighborhood, those offers usually came with a blood price. But she thought of the eviction notice on her counter. She thought of her mother coughing up blood in the sink this morning. "I need an advance," Alicia whispered. Lucas smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a predator who had just caught his prey. "Marco will write the check. Welcome to the family, Alicia." The drive to the Moretti estate was silent. Alicia sat in the back of the armored SUV, separated from the driver by thick, tinted glass. Beside her, in his car seat, Leo slept soundly for the first time in what seemed like forever. Lucas sat in the front passenger seat, on the phone, speaking in rapid-fire Italian. His tone was aggressive, discussing shipments, docks, and handling a problem in the South Side. Alicia gripped her purse tight. "What have I done?" she thought. She had just sold her soul to the devil to pay for her mother's medicine. The car slowed as it approached massive iron gates adorned with the letter M. They swung open, revealing a winding driveway lined with ancient oak trees. The house, no, the palace, at the end of the drive was terrifyingly grand. It was stone, cold, and imposing, much like its owner. As the car stopped, Lucas opened her door. "Leave your things. The staff will bring them. Focus on Leo." Alicia unbuckled the car seat. As soon as the cold night air hit the baby's face, Leo stirred, his face scrunched up, preparing to wail. Lucas stiffened. He looked at Alicia with genuine panic. "Fix it." Alicia lifted Leo, tucking him against her shoulder immediately. "It's okay, little man. Just a new place. Smells like pine trees, see?" She rubbed his back firmly. Leo whimpered, but didn't scream. Lucas let out a breath he seemed to have been holding for miles. "Come!" The interior of the mansion was breathtaking, filled with marble floors and Renaissance art, but it felt empty. It felt like a museum, not a home. Lucas led her up a grand staircase to the nursery. The nursery was larger than Alicia's entire apartment. It was filled with every toy imaginable, imported from France and Germany. But it was sterile. Everything was white and grey. "The nanny's quarters are through that door," Lucas pointed to an adjoining room. "Your mother will be settled in the guest suite on the first floor. The doctor is already with her." Alicia turned to him, surprised. "Already? How?" "I made a call while we were driving," Lucas said simply. "Efficiency is my business." He looked at her, his gaze lingering on her face. "You have rules, Alicia. Rule 1, you do not leave the estate without a guard. Rule 2, You do not enter my office or the East Wing under any circumstances. Rule 3. What you see here, what you hear here, dies here. If you gossip, if you talk to the press, if you talk to the police—" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. "I understand," Alicia said. "And I have rules, too." Lucas raised an eyebrow. "You think you are in a position to negotiate?" "If you want me to be a mother to this boy, I need authority," Alicia said, her voice shaking but her chin held high. "No more shouting in the house. No guns in the nursery. And you need to spend 1 hour a day with him. Just you. No phones. No Marco." Lucas laughed. It was a dark, dry sound. "I don't have time for playing daddy, Alicia. I pay you to do that." "He doesn't need a paid employee, Mr. Moretti. He needs his father. The reason he screams is that he doesn't know you. You're a stranger to him." Lucas's face darkened. He stepped closer, towering over her. "Careful, Waitress. You're pushing your luck." "Fire me then," Alicia challenged, clutching Leo tighter, "and go back to the screaming." They stared at each other for a long, tense moment. The air crackled with electricity. Lucas Moretti wasn't used to defiance. He was used to obedience. But looking at this small woman in a stained waitress uniform, holding his son like a shield, he felt a grudging respect. 1 hour, Lucas gritted out. "Starting tomorrow. But if he cries, I'm leaving." He turned on his heel and stormed out of the room. Alicia let out a long sigh, her knees trembling. She looked down at Leo, who was watching her with wide, dark eyes, his father's eyes. "We're in trouble, Leo," she whispered. "Big trouble." Later that night, Alicia had settled her mother, who was overwhelmed by the luxury and the sudden medical attention, into a room that looked like a hotel suite. After ensuring she was asleep, Alicia returned to the nursery. She couldn't sleep. The house made noises. Creaks, settling stones, and the muffled sounds of men talking downstairs. She walked to the window of the nursery, looking out over the sprawling grounds. Below, near the garage, she saw lights. She saw Lucas standing by a black sedan. Marco was there, along with 2 other men she didn't recognize. They were dragging a man out of the trunk of the car. The man had a bag over his head. Alicia gasped and stepped back from the window, her heart hammering. She knew the Mafia was violent. Everyone in Chicago knew. But seeing it was different. Lucas looked up. Even from 2 stories down, in the dark, his instincts were supernatural. He looked straight at the nursery window. Alicia ducked behind the curtain, sliding down to the floor. She covered her mouth with her hand. Rule 3. What you see here, dies here. She crawled back to the crib where Leo was sleeping. She realized then that she hadn't just taken a job. She had entered a war zone. And the most dangerous thing wasn't the men with guns outside. It was the fact that for a brief moment in the restaurant, she had felt sorry for the monster who led them. Suddenly, the nursery door handle turned. Alicia froze. She scrambled to her feet, standing between the door and the crib. The door opened. It wasn't Lucas. It was a woman. She was tall, stunningly beautiful, with platinum blonde hair and a dress that cost more than Alicia's life. She looked at Alicia with cold, blue eyes. "So," the woman sneered, looking Alicia up and down, "you're the new help." "I'm the nanny," Alicia said. "Who are you?" The woman walked into the room, not even glancing at the baby. She walked right up to Alicia. "I'm Sophia, Lucas's fiancée, and I don't like rats in my house." "I'm not a rat," Alicia said. "We'll see." Sophia smiled, and it was terrified. The last nanny had an accident on the stairs. She was clumsy. "I hope you have better balance, Alicia." Sophia turned and left, leaving the door slightly ajar. Alicia rushed to lock it, her hands shaking. She looked at Leo. The baby was the only innocent thing in this house. "I won't let them hurt you," she whispered to the sleeping child, "and I won't let them hurt me." But as she lay on the small bed in the adjoining room that night, Alicia realized something terrifying. She had lied to Lucas. She wasn't just hiding from debt. She was hiding from a past that was slowly catching up to her. And if Lucas Moretti found out who Alicia Vance really was, he wouldn't fire her. He would kill her himself. The following afternoon, at exactly 4 p.m., the nursery door swung open. Lucas Moretti stood there, looking less like a father ready to bond, and more like a man facing a firing squad. He was still wearing his suit jacket, though the tie was loosened slightly. Alicia was sitting on the plush rug, stacking soft blocks for a gurgling Leo. The change in the baby in just 24 hours was miraculous. Proper sleep and a calm environment had turned the screaming red creature into a curious, wide-eyed infant. Lucas stopped 3 feet away, hands clasped behind his back. "I am here for the allotted time." Alicia suppressed a smile. "He's a baby, Mr. Moretti, not a dentist appointment. Take off your jacket. You're too stiff." Lucas scowled but complied, draping the expensive Italian silk over a crib railing. He rolled up his shirt sleeves, revealing forearms that were thick with muscle and covered in faint, silvery scars, a roadmap of his violent life in Chicago's underworld. "Sit," Alicia patted the rug beside her. Lucas looked at the floor with disdain, as if it were covered in acid, but he eventually lowered his 6'3" frame onto the rug. He looked ridiculously out of place, a panther trying to fit into a petting zoo. Alicia picked up Leo and held him out to Lucas. "Hold him, facing you." Lucas took his son as if he were handling a live grenade. He held Leo at arm's length, his grip awkward. Leo immediately whimpered, sensing the tension. "See?" Lucas flinched. "He hates me. He's going to start screaming." "He doesn't hate you. He doesn't know you," Alicia corrected gently. She scooted closer, invading Lucas's personal space. She smelled of lavender soap and something naturally sweet that made Lucas's breath hitch. "Here," she murmured, placing her small hands over his large, calloused ones, guiding them. "Relax your shoulders. Bring him to your chest. He needs to hear your heartbeat. It's comforting. It reminds them of the womb." Lucas allowed her to guide him. As Leo's small, warm weight settled against his chest, Lucas stiffened. But then, a tiny hand reached out and grabbed the fabric of his shirt. Leo looked up at him, his dark eyes blinking slowly. "Talk to him," Alicia whispered, her face inches from Lucas's shoulder. "Tell him about your day." "My day involved threatening a union leader on the docks and laundering $3 million through a shell company in the Cayman Islands," Lucas said dryly. "Not exactly nursery rhymes." Alicia laughed softly. The sound vibrated through Lucas's chest, a sensation he found disturbingly pleasant. "The words don't matter. It's the tone. Just keep your voice low." Lucas cleared his throat. He looked down at his son. "Hello, Leo," he said, his voice a low rumble. I own this city. Someday it will be yours. But first, you have to learn to stop crying at restaurants. It's bad for business." Leo blew a spit bubble. A corner of Lucas's mouth quirked up. It wasn't quite a smile, but it was close. For the next 50 minutes, the most dangerous man in Illinois sat on a rug and let his infant son drool on a $500 shirt. He watched Alicia play peekaboo, mesmerized by how easily laughter bubbled out of her, how natural she was. For an hour, the constant noise in Lucas's head, the threats, the paranoia, the grief over Isabella, went quiet. When the clock struck 5, Lucas carefully handed a sleepy Leo back to Alicia. As their hands brushed during the transfer, a jolt of electricity seemed to pass between them. Lucas pulled his hand back sharply, his eyes darkening. He was getting too comfortable. Comfort made you weak. "The hour is up," Lucas said abruptly, standing and grabbing his jacket. The ice was back in his voice. He needed to get out of that room, away from the scent of lavender and the dangerous softness developing in his chest. "Same time tomorrow," Alicia said calmly, not intimidated by his sudden shift. Lucas just grunted and left the room. Once he was gone, Alicia let out a shaky breath. Being that close to him was terrifying for reasons she couldn't quite articulate. It wasn't just fear of the Don, it was the strange gravitational pull he exerted. She carried Leo over to the changing table. She needed a fresh diaper from her large tote bag she'd brought from her apartment. As she rummaged through the side pocket, her finger snagged on a worn manila envelope. It fell to the floor, spilling its contents face up. It was a single photograph. Old, faded, with curled edges. It showed a man sitting at a poker table in a smoky back room somewhere in Little Italy, decades ago. The man in the photo was laughing, holding a winning hand of cards. Standing behind him, looking young and hungry, was a teenage Lucas Moretti. Alicia's heart slammed against her ribs. She snatched the photo up, looking frantically at the door to ensure it was closed. She traced the face of the laughing man at the table. "I'm inside, Papa," she whispered, her voice trembling with a mixture of fear and cold resolve. "I found the man who betrayed you. I'm right in his house." Alicia Vance wasn't just a waitress down on her luck. She was the daughter of Sal the Ghost Vanchetti, a mid-level enforcer who had vanished 10 years ago after allegedly stealing from the Moretti family. Everyone said Lucas had killed him. Alicia was here for the truth. And if necessary, she was here for revenge. 3 days passed. The routine settled into a fragile rhythm. Lucas did his mandatory hour, though he remained guarded. Alicia's mother, Maria, was thriving under the care of private doctors, her color returning for the first time in years. And Leo was blossoming, a happy baby who only cried when hungry or wet. But the peace in the Moretti estate was an illusion. It was merely the deep breath before the plunge. The tension came from 2 directions. The first was Sophia. Lucas's fiancée stalked the halls like a sleek, venomous cat. She questioned the staff about Alicia. She made snide comments about Alicia's cheap clothes, and she constantly tried to undermine Alicia's authority with Leo. One morning, Alicia found the nursery temperature cranked up to 80 degrees, while Leo was sleeping under a heavy blanket. He was sweating profusely, whimpering. If Alicia hadn't checked on him early, he could have overheated dangerously. Sophia had been the only other person upstairs. When Alicia confronted Lucas about it in his study, breaking Rule 2, he dismissed her concerns. "Sophia is high-strung, but she wouldn't hurt a baby," Lucas said, not looking up from the blueprints spread across his mahogany desk. "Stick to your job, Alicia. Don't create drama where there isn't any." "My job is keeping your son alive," Alicia snapped her. "And your fiancé is a hazard." Lucas looked up then, his eyes cold steel. "Careful. You're replaceable. Sophia is family alliances. Do not make me choose." Alicia left the study fuming, but also afraid. She realized Lucas didn't love Sophia. It was a business arrangement to unite the Morettis with a powerful New York faction. That made Sophia desperate to prove her worth, and desperation made people dangerous. But the second threat was far worse than a jealous fiancé. That evening, a storm broke over Chicago. Thunder rattled the huge windows of the estate. Alicia was in the nursery, rocking Leo to sleep. humming an old Italian lullaby her father used to sing. Suddenly, the lights in the mansion flickered and died. The emergency generator kicked on instantly with a low hum, bathing the hallway in dim amber light. A second later, an alarm blared. It wasn't a fire alarm. It was a deep, rhythmic klaxon that signaled a perimeter breach. Below, on the ground floor, shouting erupted. Then came the unmistakable pop, pop, pop of automatic gunfire. Alicia's blood turned to ice. She didn't freeze, though. Instinct she hadn't used since her childhood in a rough neighborhood kicked in. She threw Leo into his crib, keeping him low. She ran to the door, locking the heavy deadbolt. She grabbed a heavy brass lamp from a side table, ripping the cord from the wall. It wasn't much of a weapon against guns, but it was something. The gunfire was getting closer. They were inside the house. Downstairs, Lucas was in the middle of a war zone. 6 men in tactical gear and ski masks had blown the front gate and stormed the foyer. His guards were returning fire from behind marble pillars. Lucas had a Beretta in each hand, firing with lethal precision. He took down 2 attackers near the staircase. "Marco!" Lucas roared over the noise. "Status!" "They're Ivanov soldati!" Marco yelled, reloading behind an overturned sofa. "Someone cut the external cameras. They walked right up to the front door." An inside job. The realization hit Lucas like a physical blow. Only a handful of people knew the security codes. A spray of bullets chipped the stone wall inches from Lucas's head. He ducked, cursing. His first thought, his only thought, was the nursery upstairs. "Hold the stairs," Lucas ordered his men. "Do not let them pass the first floor." He sprinted toward the service stairwell at the back of the house, taking the steps 2 at a time. He had to get to Leo. He had to get to Alicia. Upstairs, Alicia heard heavy boots running down the hallway. They stopped outside the nursery door. The doorknob jiggled violently. Then, a heavy weight slammed against the wood. Someone was trying to kick the door in. Leo started to scream, terrified by the noise. "Shh, baby, shh," Alicia whispered, putting herself between the crib and the door, raising the brass lamp. The door splintered on the second kick. A man in black gear stumbled into the room, an assault rifle raised. He saw Alicia and grinned beneath his mask. Jackpot, the brat and the nanny. He took a step toward her. Alicia didn't cower. She didn't beg. She saw the man's stance, saw he was overconfident, expecting an easy target. As he reached for her, she swung the heavy base of the brass lamp with all her might. It connected with the side of his helmet with a sickening clang. The man stumbled sideways, dazed. He dropped his rifle. Before he could recover, Alicia dropped the lamp and dove for the rifle on the floor. She rolled onto her back, bringing the heavy weapon up. The intruder shook his head, pulling a handgun from his hip holster, turning back to her with murder in his eyes. Alicia didn't hesitate. She pulled the trigger. The recoil bruised her shoulder, but her aim was true. The man dropped to the floor, a neat hole in his chest. The room went silent, except for Leo's screaming and Alicia's ragged breathing. She scrambled to her feet, chambering another round in the rifle with practiced ease, trembling from adrenaline. A second later, Lucas burst through the ruined doorway, his guns raised, ready to kill everyone in the room to save his son. He froze. He took in the scene. The dead Ivanov soldier on the rug, his screaming son safe in the crib, and the quiet, unassuming waitress, the woman who smelled of lavender and sang soft lullabies, standing over the body, holding an assault rifle like she had been born with it in her hands. Her stance was perfect, her finger indexed along the trigger guard, her eyes wild but focused. Lucas lowered his guns slowly, staring at her with a mixture of overwhelming relief and terrifying realization. "Alicia," he said, his voice hoarse. "Who are you?" Alicia looked at him. The rifle didn't waver. The mask had slipped. The secrets were out. "We have to move," she said, her voice detached and cold. "There will be more of them." Lucas didn't ask questions. Not yet. He grabbed the diaper bag with one hand and Alicia's arm with the other, steering her out of the nursery. The hallway smelled of gunpowder and drywall dust. "The service elevator," Lucas commanded, moving with terrifying speed. "It goes straight to the underground garage." Alicia clutched Leo to her chest. The baby had gone silent, sensing the primal fear radiating from the adults. They reached the garage just as the sound of sirens began to wail in the distance. The police, finally. But Lucas knew better than to wait for them. In Chicago, half the cops were on his payroll, but the other half were on Ivanov's. He couldn't take the risk. He shoved them into a nondescript silver sedan, not the armored SUV. "Get down! Stay down!" He peeled out of the garage, bypassing the main gate and smashing through a wooden service fence at the back of the property. The car skidded onto a dirt road before finding the asphalt. Lucas drove like a man possessed, weaving through traffic, checking his mirrors every 3 seconds. They drove for 40 minutes in silence. Alicia watched the city lights blur past, her mind racing. She had exposed herself. She had shown her hand. Why hasn't he shot me yet? She wondered. They pulled up to an abandoned textile factory in the industrial district. Lucas used a remote to open a rusted bay door. They drove inside, and the door rattled shut behind them, plunging them into darkness until Lucas killed the engine and the motion sensor floodlights clicked on. It was a fortress disguised as a ruin. Inside the factory was a sleek, modern loft fortified with steel shutters and bulletproof glass. "Out," Lucas said. He led them upstairs to the living area. He checked the perimeter monitors, locked the steel door, and then, finally, he turned to her. The adrenaline was fading, leaving a cold, hard rage in its place. Lucas Moretti looked dangerous. He stalked toward her, backing her up until her legs hit the edge of the leather sofa. "Put the boy down," he said quietly. Alicia placed Leo in a portable crib set up in the corner. She kissed his forehead, her hands trembling slightly, then turned to face the lion. "You handled an AR-15 like a soldier," Lucas said, his voice low and vibrating with threat. "You checked the chamber. You controlled the recoil. A waitress doesn't know how to do that. A nanny doesn't kill a man without blinking." He stepped closer, invading her space, his eyes searching her face. "Who sent you? Ivanov? The feds?" "Nobody sent me," Alicia said, holding her ground. "I came for myself." "Liar!" Lucas grabbed her wrist, pulling her close. "Tell me the truth, or God help me. I will forget that you saved my son." "My name isn't Alicia Vance," she spat out, the secret burning her throat. "It's Alicia Vanchetti." Lucas froze. His grip on her wrist didn't loosen, but his eyes widened slightly. "Vanchetti? Does it ring a bell, Don Moretti?" Alicia's voice broke, tears of anger welling in her eyes. "Sal Vanchetti, the man who worked for your father, the man you killed 10 years ago, because you thought he stole from you." Lucas released her wrist as if it were burning hot. He took a step back, running a hand through his hair. "Sal the ghost. Vanchetti. You're Sal's kid." "I was 14 when he disappeared," Alicia cried. "You killed him. My mother got sick because of the stress. We lost everything. I came to your house to find proof. I wanted to see the monster who destroyed my family. And I found the photo in the nursery, him and you, playing poker." Lucas stared at her, his expression unreadable. For a long moment, the only sound in the massive warehouse was the hum of the refrigerator and Alicia's ragged breathing. Then Lucas did something unexpected. He laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh, it was bitter, dark, and hollow. He walked over to a wet bar and poured 2 fingers of whiskey. He downed it in one swallow. "You think I killed your father?" Lucas asked, turning back to her. "Everyone knows you did. He went to a meeting with you and never came home." "Alicia," Lucas said, his voice tired. "I didn't kill Sal. I wish I had. It would have saved me a lot of trouble." "Don't lie to me." "I don't lie about my kills," Lucas snapped, his eyes flashing. "I killed the man in the nursery tonight. I killed 3 men last week who tried to run drugs near a school. I own my sins. But Sal?" Lucas walked to a wall safe hidden behind a painting. He spun the dial, opened it, and pulled out a thick black file. He tossed it onto the coffee table in front of her. "Read it." Alicia looked at the file, then at him. Shaking, she opened it. It wasn't a death certificate. It was a surveillance report. Photos. Grainy long lens photos of a man getting on a private jet. Photos of a man living in a villa in Venezuela. Photos of bank transfers. "Your father didn't die," Lucas said ruthlessly. "He stole $4 million from the family pension fund, money meant for the widows and children of my soldiers. I caught him. I was going to kill him. But he begged. He said he'd leave the country, disappear forever, if I let him live." Lucas pointed at the file. "I let him go, Alicia. I showed mercy. And do you know what he did? He took the money and he left. He didn't send for you? He didn't send for your mother?" Alicia stared at the photos. The timestamps were recent. 2 years ago. 5 years ago. There was her father, older, greyer, holding a drink on a beach, smiling. "No," she whispered, the world spinning around her. He wouldn't. He loved us." "He loved the money more," Lucas said, his voice softening just a fraction. "He abandoned you, Alicia. I didn't make you an orphan." "He did." Alicia's knees gave out. She collapsed onto the sofa, the file sliding to the floor. The hate she had nurtured for 10 years, the fuel that had kept her going, was gone, replaced by a hollow, aching void. Her father wasn't a martyr. He was a coward. She felt a weight settle beside her. Lucas sat down. He didn't touch her, but his presence was a solid wall of heat. "You learned to shoot from him?" Lucas asked. "Target practice," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "On weekends, before he left. He said a girl needs to know how to protect herself." "He was right about that," Lucas murmured. He reached out, his hand hovering, then gently brushed a tear from her cheek with his thumb. The touch was electric. Alicia looked up at him. The monster she had hated was gone. In his place was a man who had protected her tonight, a man who had been betrayed, just like she had. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." "You saved Leo," Lucas said. His eyes dropped to her lips. The air in the room grew heavy, charged with the violence of the night and the raw vulnerability of the moment. "That wipes the slate clean. You are not your father, Alicia." He leaned in. Alicia didn't pull away. She wanted to forget the pain. She wanted to feel something else. His lips brushed hers, tentative at first, testing the waters. When she didn't recoil, he groaned low in his throat and kissed her for real. It was a possession, hard, desperate, and consuming. Alicia's hands tangled in his hair, pulling him closer. For a moment, there was no Mafia, no betrayal, no crying baby, just 2 broken people finding solace in the fire. The morning sun filtered through the high industrial windows, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. Alicia woke up in the massive bed, alone. The sheets on the other side were cold. Panic flared for a second, until she heard the low rumble of voices downstairs. She grabbed Lucas's discarded dress shirt, buttoning it quickly, and padded barefoot down the steel stairs. Lucas was standing by the bank of monitors, dressed in fresh clothes, black jeans and a black t-shirt that hugged his muscles. Marco was there too, looking disheveled and pale. "You're sure?" Lucas was asking, his voice like chipped ice. "Positive, boss," Marco said, handing Lucas a tablet. "We traced the communication. The security codes were sent from an IP address inside the estate, from the guest wing." Lucas slammed his fist onto the metal desk. "Sophia." Alicia stepped off the last stair. "What happened?" Both men turned. Marco's eyes widened, seeing her in the boss's shirt. Realizing exactly what that meant, he quickly looked at the floor. "We found the rat," Lucas said, his jaw tight. "It was Sophia." "Your fiancé?" Alicia gasped. "Ex-fiancé," Lucas corrected darkly. "She sold the perimeter codes to the Ivanovs. Marco interrogated her maid this morning. Sophia was jealous. She thought if there was a security scare, I would fire you and send the baby to boarding school in Switzerland so she could have her life back." "She didn't know they would try to kill us," Marco added. "She thought it would be a break-in, a robbery. She's stupid, not suicidal." "Stupidity gets people killed just as fast as malice," Lucas growled. "Where is she?" "She's gone," Marco said. "Ivanov picked her up an hour ago. They have her." Lucas paced the room, the predator caged. "They don't just have her, they have the leverage. Sophia knows where the accounts are. She knows the shipping routes." "Wait," Alicia interrupted. She walked over to the table where the surveillance photos of her father still lay scattered. A terrible thought was forming in her mind. "Lucas, look at this photo of my father." Lucas frowned, stepping closer. "What about it?" "Look who he's shaking hands with," Alicia pointed to a blurry figure in the background of the beach photo. "That man, the one in the white suit." Lucas squinted, then his face went pale. "That's Dmitry Ivanov, the father of the brothers who attacked us." "My father isn't just retired," Alicia said, her voice trembling but certain. "He's working for them. He's been working for them for years. That's why he stole your money. It was his buy-in." The silence in the room was deafening. The pieces slammed together. "It's not just about territory," Lucas realized. "The Ivanovs used Sophia to get in, but they used your father to plan it. They knew the layout of the house because Sal helped build it 20 years ago." Marco's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen and turned white. "Boss, it's a video message from Ivanov." Lucas snatched the phone. He pressed play. On the small screen, Alexei Ivanov sat in a leather chair. Behind him, tied to a chair and looking battered, was Sophia. But standing next to Ivanov, looking older but very much alive, was Sal Vanchetti. "Hello, Lucas," Ivanov smiled, his gold tooth glinting. "We have your woman. She has been very chatty. But we want something else. We want the port, all of it, the entire shipping operation." Then the camera panned to Sal. Alicia's father looked into the lens. His eyes were cold. "And Lucas," Sal said, his voice scratching through the speaker, "I hear you have a new nanny. Bring her to the exchange. I want my daughter back. She has value to me." The video cut to black. Alicia felt like she was going to be sick. Her father didn't want her back because he missed her. He wanted her because she had value, probably to marry her off to some other warlord to seal a deal. Lucas handed the phone back to Marco, his hand steady. He turned to Alicia. "He wants a trade," Lucas said. "The port and you, for Sophia and peace." "He can keep Sophia," Lucas said coldly. "But he threatens my son, and he demands my family." He looked at Alicia, his eyes fierce and possessive. "He is not taking you." "He will kill Sophia if you don't go," Alicia said. "Sophia made her choice," Lucas said. But we have to end this. Tonight. If we don't, they will keep coming for Leo. I have a plan, Alicia said. Her fear was gone, replaced by the same cold resolve she had felt when she pulled the trigger the night before. He wants his daughter? Fine. Give him his daughter. No, Lucas said immediately. Absolutely not. I am not using you as bait. I'm the only bait he'll take, Alicia argued, stepping up to him, grabbing the lapels of his shirt. Her shirt. Lucas, listen to me. My father thinks I'm a scared little girl. He thinks I'm the waitress who cries over spilled milk. He doesn't know what I am now. He doesn't know what you've taught me. And what have I taught you? Lucas asked softly. That mercy gets you killed, Alicia said. Let me go in. I can get close to him, closer than any of your men. Let me be the Trojan horse. Lucas stared at her. He saw the fire in her eyes, the steel in her spine. She was a queen in the making. His queen. If you do this, Lucas said, there is no going back. You are declaring war on your own blood. My blood is in that crib, Alicia said, pointing to Leo, and my blood is standing right in front of me. Sal Vanchetti is nothing to me but a target. Lucas nodded once. He turned to Marco. Call the boys, Lucas ordered. Load the trucks. We're going to the docks. And Marco? Yes, boss? Bring the heavy artillery. Nobody walks away from this one. The Chicago docks were a graveyard of rusted metal and shipping containers. Under the harsh glare of halogen floodlights, the Ivanov army waited. In the center stood a silver Rolls-Royce. Leaning against it was Alexei Ivanov, smoking a cigar. Next to him, looking nervous but greedy, was Sal Vanchetti. Lucas stopped the black SUV. He turned to Alicia. She was dressed in white, looking like a sacrificial lamb, but beneath the fabric, a ceramic knife was taped to her thigh. We can still turn back, Lucas rasped, gripping the steering wheel. I can't trade you. You aren't trading me, Alicia whispered, touching his face. I'm the Trojan horse. Just be ready. She stepped out into the biting wind. Lucas followed, gripping her arm roughly to play the part, marching her toward the enemy. Lucas, Ivanov grinned, spreading his arms. The girl for the peace, a fair trade. Where is Sophia? Lucas demanded. Ivanov snapped his fingers. Two men dragged Sophia from the car. She was battered and terrified. Lucas didn't blink. She was merely a chess piece now. Sal Vanchetti stepped forward. He looked at his daughter, not with love, but with appraisal. Alicia, Sal said, smiling a smile that didn't reach his eyes. You look good. Grown up? Why, Papa? Alicia's voice trembled, playing the victim perfectly. Why did you leave us? Mum died coughing up blood because we couldn't afford a doctor. Where were you? Sal shrugged, a dismissive gesture that shattered Alicia's heart. Business, sweetie. Things got hot. But I'm here now. You're coming with me to Venezuela. You're going to marry Alexei's son. It secures our new alliance. You'll be rich. The truth hit her like a physical blow. He wasn't a victim. He was a monster, selling his own child to secure his retirement. Thank you, Alicia repeated, her voice hardening. She stepped closer. Yes, thank you, Sal said, reaching for her wrist. Now come on. As his hand closed around her, Alicia moved. She didn't pull away. She stepped into him. Her hand flew to her thigh, ripping the tape and driving the ceramic blade into Sal's shoulder. Sal screamed. Now! Alicia shrieked. Crack, crack. 2 shots rang out from the cranes above. Lucas's snipers. The guards beside Ivanov dropped instantly. Chaos erupted. Lucas launched himself at Ivanov, tackling the Russian boss to the concrete. Alicia grabbed her screaming father and shoved him behind a stack of crates as bullets chewed up the ground around them. You want to trade me? Alicia hissed, grabbing a fallen pistol from the ground. Like cattle? Alicia, please, Sal blubbered, clutching his bleeding shoulder. I'm your father. My father died 10 years ago, Alicia said coldly. You're just a ghost. She aimed the gun at his head. Sal squeezed his eyes shut. She had the power to end him. But looking at this pathetic man, she realized he wasn't worth the stain on her soul. She lowered the gun. I'm not you. I don't kill family. She turned her back on him. Sal, seeing an opening, reached into his jacket with his good arm. Stupid bitch, he snarled, pulling his own weapon. Bang! Alicia flinched, but she wasn't hit. She turned around. Sal slumped forward, a bullet hole in the center of his forehead. Lucas stood 10 feet away, his smoking Beretta in hand. He had abandoned his fight to save her. I told you, Lucas said, his eyes dark and possessive. I don't lie about my kills, and nobody touches what is mine. It was over. Ivanov was zip-tied on the ground. The threat was extinguished. Alicia collapsed into Lucas's arms, burying her face in his chest. He smelled of gunpowder and blood, but it was the safest scent in the world. 1 year later, the garden of the Moretti estate was in full bloom, no longer a fortress, but a home. Lucas sat on a bench, watching a toddler wobble across the grass. Mama! Mama! Little Leo shouted, running into Alicia's arms. Alicia scooped him up, peppering his face with kisses before sitting beside Lucas. He's fast, she laughed. He takes after his mother. Lucas smiled, wrapping his arm around them both. He's not my biological son, Lucas. Blood makes you related, Lucas said, kissing her temple. Loyalty makes you family. Love makes you a mother. He looked at the woman who had walked into a restaurant as a desperate waitress and walked out as the queen of the underworld. You saved us, Alicia, he whispered. Alicia smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. No, we saved each other. And that is the incredible story of Alicia and Lucas, from a desperate waitress whispering to a screaming baby, to a warrior woman taking down her own corrupt father on the docks. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the people we think are monsters, like Lucas, are just protecting what they love, and the people we think are heroes, like Alicia's father, are the real villains. I love that Alicia didn't just wait to be rescued. She saved herself, and she saved Lucas right back. That ending in the garden was the perfect payoff for all the darkness they went through. Now, I have a question for you guys. If you were Alicia, would you have pulled the trigger on your father at the docks, or would you have walked away like she did? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this Mafia romance saga, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss our next story. I have a thriller coming up next week about a billionaire and a runaway bride that you do not want to miss. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.